millions of people might have overlooked in daily transactions could instead hold the key to life-changing wealth, and how knowing the right details, spotting the subtle differences, and understanding the history of mint marks and errors can make the difference between a regular 10-cent coin and one that collectors and investors fight to own for prices that soar into hundreds of thousands of dollars. So let us begin by thinking about the historical backdrop of the 1970 dime. Minted during a period of change in the United States when the nation was facing cultural shifts, political tensions, and economic transitions, yet the coinage system continued its steady operation under the United States Mint, which had been producing Roosevelt dimes since 1946 following the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, with his profile immortalized on the obverse of every dime minted since then. But in 1970 something unusual happened that would forever change the numismatic world, because a handful of Roosevelt dimes were struck with minting errors that today make them some of the rarest and most valuable coins in existence, and among these the most famous are the dimes that were mistakenly struck over 1941 Canadian coins, a spectacular blunder that escaped the mint's quality control system, and these are the types of minting mistakes that propel the value of a coin far beyond its face value. Since collectors know that true errors cannot be manufactured intentionally and once discovered they represent a piece of history that will never be repeated, and so these 1970 Roosevelt dimes became coveted treasures for those fortunate enough to encounter them, and the demand for them has only increased as numismatic knowledge has spread and auction houses have reported record-breaking prices for such coins, with one example known to have reached up to $700,000, shocking casual collectors and fueling interest in coin hunting. Everyday people who realize that treasure could be hiding right in their pockets or change jars. And this possibility leads us into the fascinating world of mint marks and errors. The 1970 dime is no type of mistake but about the minting process can go wrong. Off metal strikes, double dies, missing mint marks, repunched mint marks, overdates, and the spectacular wrong plant errors that cause coin on books, as happened with the dime struck and to why the 1970 dime can be worth such astronomical amounts. One has to understand how mint marks functioned during this period, with the San Francisco Mint identified by the S mark produced goof coins and limp shoes, while Philadelphia and Denver handled massive numbers of circulation strikes, and in the San Francisco Mint that some of the rarest dimes were produced in pieces where the mint mark was doubled or incorrectly punched, which creates variety that collectors eagerly chase because presentable to the human element of minting. And technicians who manually punched die occasionally made mistakes, and in 1970 these errors were preserved forever in the coins that were struck before the die was retired, ensuring that only a tiny handful of specimens exist and making them enormously valuable. And when you find rarity, historical color status demand you create the per coin to value, which is examined with the 1970. While ordinary 1970 dimes in circulated can only be worth face or a few cents in worn condition versions, and stark contrast, commanding prices that are unimaginable for most people. So one that it could worth 700,000 reais. Numismatics is stories third to the 1943 copper cent coins whose value, because of their rarity and minting mistakes, and the 1970 dime fits perfectly into edition, carrying with it a story that excites collectors and teaches that paying attention to detail is everything. And what makes this tale even more thrilling that such coins can theoretically out waiting to be discovered in old coin rolls, inherited collections, or forgotten jars of change in attics and basements. And that possibility fuels the dreams of treasure hunters who scour through thousands of coins in hopes of striking it rich with a discovery that could change lives forever. So as we think about the 1970 dime and its $700,000 price tag, we must appreciate how errors like the 1941 Canadian overstrike marks happen, because when the Mint experimented foreign coinage production during the 1960s and 1970s, leftovers from others sometimes found their presses, creating hybrid coins that were never meant to exist, and quality control processes, thorough, were not perfect, allowing such anomalies to through, and once coin calculation their properties often went unnoticed for years until sharp-eyed collectors identified them and began documenting their existence, which in turn fueled their rise in value, and with every auction their legend grew larger, making them icons of numismatic collecting. Beyond the technical aspect is also the fascination with these coins, realize how mistakes can turn into miracles of value, how imperfection more precious than perfection, how a small overlooked object can carry enormous story, and this story resonates with people because it represents ability, luck, and the thrill of recovery. In the case of the 9th dime, this thrill is an astronomical figure of $700,000, a sum that transforms what would normally be pocket change into a life fortune, and as collectionists, it is essential to study that make such a coin valuable, from identifying correct mint marks, checking for double dies, analyzing the surfaces for signs of overstrikes, and knowing the historical records of mint production during that year, because only then can one fully grasp the magnitude of what makes the 1970 dime so special, and while many collectors dream of finding one, the reality is that only a few will ever surface, making them holy grails of the coin world, and their stories serve as reminders that the numismatic market values rare demand and uniqueness above all else, which is why when a coin with such qualities appears it becomes the centerpiece of headlines, auction catalogs, and passionate discussions among collectors. And so the next time you hold a dime in your hand, especially 170, remember that while most are worth just 1 cent, there exists the chance, however slim, that piece of history that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, a coin that not only survived decades of circulation but also carries with it the weight of human error, historical significance, and numismatic lore. And it is this extraordinary blend of factors that makes the 1970 dime a legend and explains why its worth has risen so far beyond its face value to reach the almost unbelievable figure of $700,000, making it one of the most captivating, inspiring stories in the entire history of American coin collecting, and this is why coin enthusiasts across the globe continue to share its story, study its varieties, and search tirelessly for that one-chance discovery that could transform their lives forever. Because in the end the story of the 1970 Liberty Dime is not just about money but about the enduring mystery and excitement of the joy of the hunt, and the knowledge that history can sometimes hide itself in the most ordinary objects, waiting for the right person to recognize it and reveal its true value to the world. Today's exciting video, where we dive deep into the fascinating world of coin collecting and the unbelievable story behind the 1965 one-dime Liberty coin that has taken the numismatic by storm and is making headlines for being valued at an astonishing $6 million, a figure that is mind-blowing when you compare it to its humble value of just 10 cents. And today we are going to explore everything there is to know about this legendary coin, its history, the circumstances that led to its rarity, the minting mistakes and errors that make it so valuable, the possibilities that give collectors goosebumps whenever they hear about it, and why a coin that was once simply a small piece of everyday currency can now be considered a life-changing treasure for those lucky enough to find one in circulation, because to understand the value of this coin we need to go back to the year 1965, a pivotal moment in coinage history, when the United States Mint to make significant changes in the composition of its coins due to a nationwide silver shortage that had begun in the early 1960s. Prior to this year, dimes, quarters, and half dollars were composed of 90% silver, but as silver prices began to rise, the melt of these coins was worth more than their face value, which led to hoarding, mass melting silver coins, and growing concern for the stability and circulating currency. The government responded in 1965 by passing the Coinage of 1965, eliminated silver from dimes and quarters altogether and reduced content in half dollars, and from then on dimes were produced in a clad composition consisting of a copper sandwiched between layers of nickel, making the 1965 dime the first clad dime in U.S. history. However, as with any major transition, errors were bound to occur, and some 1965 dimes slipped through the cracks by being struck 90% silver planchets intended for 1964 coins. This unexpected error resulted in a handful of silver 1965 dimes existing, and because of this incredible rarity, these coins have become some of the most modern U.S. coins ever discovered. Collectors hunt for them relentlessly because they represent a unique moment in history when the mint was caught between two eras of coinage. And this is where the staggering $6 million valuation comes into play, because while a regular clad 1960 dime is worth only 10 cents and perhaps slightly more if in uncirculated condition, a genuine 1965 silver dime, especially one verified by top grading authorities, can fetch astronomical sums at auction, and the reason behind such value is not just the silver content but the extreme rarity, the story, and the errors surrounding the coin, since very few were ever made and fewer still have been discovered. Go even deeper into the errors that make this coin so valuable because the minting process in 1965 was under enormous pressure, massive quantities of new clad coins, resulting in quality control issues and mistakes that today's collectors prize. One of the most famous error mark mistake, because 1965 dimes, like other coins 1965 through 1967, were produced without mint marks as policy to discourage collectors from hoarding issues during transition. So genuine 1965 dime will appear without a mint mark, but if a coin says that appears with accidentally struck, the earth-shattering discovery, the possible transitional planchet errors also play a role because struck on leftover silver planchets or even foreign planchets only occurred, and these transitional errors are make certain examples so valuable. Then there are double die errors, off-center strikes, and other striking mistakes that increase the numismatic value, but none come close to the mystique of the silver 1965 dime. Now why is it that collectors and artists are willing to pay millions for coin? The answer lies in a perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, thrill of discovery, imagining a coin that wasn't supposed to exist, a coin born out of one of the most gifts in U.S. coinage history, a coin that tells the story of economic stress, government policy, and minting mishaps all in one. Such coins trail as money and become artifacts of history, of chance, and treasures that connect us directly to the past. And when demand collides with rarity in the numismatic world, values skyrocket, auction house heat, private collectors bid furiously, records are broken, which is a value of 10 cents could have a market value of $6 million, and this is why every collector dreams of finding one. Search jars of coins, inherited collections, or even from everyday transactions. There's always the possibility, however, that a treasure lies hidden in plain sight. Another interesting aspect of the 1965 dimes found the broader history of Liberty coins and American coinage. The Roosevelt dime had been introduced in 1940 following the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was beloved for his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II as well as his strong support in the March of Dimes campaign to fight polio. The dime became a fitting tribute to his legacy, and it was used in silver from 1946 through 1964. But with the crisis of the 1960s, the coin underwent the most dramatic change in its history by becoming clad in 1965, making that year's issue a point not only for the dime but for U.S. as a whole. Within that monumental change, mistakes were made that gave birth to legends, and one of those legends is the $1 million dime, so consider the psychology of value in the coin market, because beyond the intrinsic rarity, people place immense emotional value on the idea of owning something forbidden or impossible. And the 1965 silver dime embodies that perfectly. It wasn't meant to exist, and yet it does, and that contradiction makes it a prize unlike any other. Collectors chase errors because they represent known human mistakes in a system designed for precision. The tiny slips create lasting legacies, and the 1965 silver dime is the ultimate example of this phenomenon. And when we talk about value, we must also recognize that condition is critical. 1965 silver dime in poor condition will still be valuable, but one circulated or mint state by top certificates can command breathtaking, and when you combine rarity with condition, you get auction rates that leave people speechless. Exactly what happened when examples of this coins sold for hundreds of thousands and eventually crossed into the multi-million-dollar range. Speculation about the $6 million price tag continues to go, as more collectors and investors seek tangible assets that hold both historical and financial significance. But here's something that makes it exciting: there's always the possibility of undiscovered eagles lying dormant collections. Forgotten rolls of coins, or bank vaults, means that finding one is alive forever, and that dream is what keeps collectors turning coin collecting from just a hobby to a hunt. And this hunt is especially thrilling because unlike ancient artifacts locked away in museums, coins circulate, they travel through time, through hands, through pockets, and occasionally they resurface in the most unexpected places, reminding us that history is never as far away as it seems. So as we reflect on the incredible story of the 1965 dime, worth $6 million due to its minting errors, silver planchet anomalies, and the lack of mint marks during that transitional period, we realize that this coin represents more than just money. It represents American history, a symbol of chance, and a testament that tiny mistakes can create monumental value. And perhaps most importantly, it shows that treasures can still be out there waiting to be found. So if you are a collector, history enthusiast, or someone who simply loves the thrill of the hunt, the 1965 dime is a reminder to always keep open, to check your change. Never underestimate the value hidden in everyday objects, because you never know, a simple coin could turn into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery worth millions. And that is the story of the 1965 one dime, its errors, its history, and its unbelievable $6 million valuation that continues to create the world of numismatics and beyond. This exciting and journey into the fascinating world of rare coins, where today we will be diving deep into the story of the 2000p Roosevelt dime, a coin that has managed to capture the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike because of its unique value far beyond its small face value of just 10 cents. As this coin in certain cases has been known to be worth an astounding $0.8 million due to a combination of errors, mint mark variations, striking mistakes, and collector demand that has elevated it into one of the most remarkable modern rarities in American numismatic history. And as we begin this detailed exploration, it is important to understand that while most dimes minted in the year 2000 at the Philadelphia Mint carry little more than their face value and can be found in circulation by the millions, there are certain examples of this very coin that possess extremely rare characteristics which transform them into treasures worth fortunes, making them a symbol of how an ordinary object can suddenly become an extraordinary prize through chance, rarity, and the mysterious quirks of the minting process. And as we take a deep dive into its origins, we must remember that the Roosevelt dime has been in production since 1946, when it was first issued to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a leader remembered for guiding the United States through the Great Depression and World War II, and since then it has remained consistent part of American coinage, evolving from its original silver position to the copper-nickel design that we use today. But with such massive production runs each year, it is inevitable that variations and minting mistakes occasionally occur. And it is precisely in those unusual mistakes that the story of dime become one of fascination, intrigue, and issue. Because in 2000 for trillions of dimes, and yet among those countless coins a small fraction emerged with unusual attributes that caught the eye of keen numismatists, attributes like off-center strikes where the coin design is not properly aligned with the planchet, double dies where the image appears duplicated due to misalignment during the striking process, or missing mint marks that were accidentally omitted from the die. And in the specific case of the 2000p dime, certain mint errors have been discovered which dramatically increase their desirability and monetary worth, transforming what would normally be a common pocket change coin into a museum-quality rarity capable of fetching sums reaching into the hundreds of thousands or even the millions at high-level auctions. And when we speak of a valuation as high as $0.8 million, we are not exaggerating, because there have been confirmed cases of modern era coins commanding prices that most people would never believe for such a small denomination, driven by rarity, demand, and the passion of serious collectors who compete for ownership of such spectacular finds. And one of the key reasons behind this value lies in the unique mint mark error associated with some 2000p dimes, because the mint mark P designates the Philadelphia Mint, and while in most cases this is applied correctly, there are instances where it appears in unusual positions, doubled, faintly struck, or even missing altogether. And in the world of coin collecting, mint mark errors are among the most prized because they signify a deviation from the expected standard, a mistake that slipped through the rigorous quality control of the United States Mint and survived in circulation against all odds. And it is this element of survival that adds a layer of mystery and romance to such coins, because the thought that a dime casually spent at a store in the year 2000 could later be identified as a fortune worth nearly $1 million stirs the imagination and excites collectors who dedicate their lives to searching through rolls of coins hoping for that one extraordinary discovery, and the 2000p dime embodies this thrill perfectly, as it has been the subject of many stories where ordinary people accidentally stumble upon a rare error coin that changes their financial future overnight. And when analyzing why these errors are so valuable, we must look at both supply and demand, because while the supply of such error coins is minuscule, sometimes limited to just a handful of known surviving examples, the demand from wealthy collectors, museums, and auction houses is enormous, creating bidding wars that drive prices sky high, and this dynamic is exactly what transforms a coin with a face value of 10 cents into a financial asset worth $0.8 million, as rarity and desirability intersect to create almost mythological levels of value. And beyond the mint mark errors, there are other possibilities that have made certain 2000p dimes uniquely valuable, including double die obverse errors where Roosevelt's portrait or the inscriptions like Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, or the date appear duplicated or shadowed, giving the coin a striking and unusual appearance that is immediately recognizable to experienced collectors, or broad strike errors where the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar, causing it to spread out unnaturally, making it larger than standard dimes and instantly setting it apart. And even more spectacular are the off-metal strikes where a dime design might be accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, such as a penny, nickel, or foreign coin blank, and examples like this are so rare that when they appear they send shockwaves through the collecting world, often commanding astronomical sums that easily reach into the hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And with the 2000p dime we have a coin that sits at the intersection of modern minting precision and the inevitability of human error, reminding us that no system is perfect, and it is in these imperfections that we often find the greatest treasures. And when we think about the sheer improbability of such an error coin surviving the minting process, escaping detection, entering circulation, and then being discovered in good enough condition to excite the collecting world, it becomes clear why these coins are so rare and so valuable. And that rarity is what drives the narrative of the 2000p Roosevelt dime as a legendary modern treasure worth $0.8 million. And this story is not just about money but also about history, passion, and the deep human fascination with collecting objects that carry with them a blend of art, utility, and chance. And the dime itself, with its enduring portrait of Roosevelt, is a reminder of America's resilience and leadership during one of its most difficult periods, making it symbolically powerful even before we consider its monetary worth. And when that symbolic design is paired with a mint error that makes it unique in the world, it transforms into something even greater, a tangible link between history, chance, and fortune. And as collectors continue to search through coin rolls, bank bags, and even pocket change hoping to find such treasures, the legend of the 2000p dime grows larger, inspiring more people to take up the hobby of coin collecting, which in turn increases the demand and drives values even higher, creating a cycle that ensures such coins remain firmly in the spotlight. And this is why discussions about the 2000p dime continue to trend across forums, auction houses, and collector circles, where experts debate the exact number of error examples, the quality of surviving specimens, and the potential future value as interest continues to rise. And while today we talk about its worth at $0.8 million, there is no telling how much such a coin could sell for in the future as the rarity becomes even more pronounced and as wealthy collectors compete to secure these limited treasures, making the 2000p Roosevelt dime not just a rare coin but also a sound investment for those lucky enough to own one. And this leads us to reflect on how something so small and seemingly insignificant as a dime can carry such immense cultural and financial weight, serving as a reminder to always look carefully at the coins in your possession, because you never know when a simple 10-cent piece could be the key to unimaginable wealth. And so the next time you come across a dime from the year 2000 with a P mint mark, take a closer look, because you could be holding history, rarity, and fortune in your hands, a coin that stands as a shining example of how the tiniest details and rarest mistakes can elevate the ordinary into the extraordinary, turning a face value of just 10 cents into a legendary $0.8 million treasure that continues to inspire awe, excitement, and the enduring passion of coin collectors around the world. Today's video where we dive deep into the incredible story of the United States one-dime 2001p Liberty coin that has stunned collectors and enthusiasts across the globe by reaching a jaw-dropping value of more than $0.9 million despite its ordinary face value of just 10 cents. And in this video we are going to explore in long and rich detail why such a tiny coin, which most people would not even bother picking up from the ground, has managed to climb into the ranks of the most highly sought-after treasures in the entire world of numismatics. And what makes this case so fascinating is not only its history but also the intriguing world of minting mistakes, errors, and hidden features that transform a simple piece of circulating change into something priceless and unforgettable. And before we unravel the reasons behind its incredible worth, let us set the stage by understanding what the 2001p dime really is, where it came from, and why it belongs to a very special chapter in the larger story of American coinage. Because every coin has a story, and sometimes those stories hide secrets that only the most careful collectors manage to notice, which is precisely why we will uncover the mysteries surrounding this extraordinary example of a coin worth millions. So let us begin by recalling that the dime is one of the oldest coin denominations in American history, dating back to the early 19th century, with its first official issue being the draped bust dime in 1796. And over the centuries the dime has evolved through several designs and changes, ultimately leading to the Roosevelt dime which we know today, and which was introduced in 1946 as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away the year before and had been an iconic figure for Americans, especially for his leadership through the Great Depression and World War II, and also because of his strong support for the March of Dimes, which was a campaign to fight polio, making the dime itself a fitting coin for his memory. And by 2001 the Roosevelt dime had been in circulation for more than half a century with relatively little change to its design except for minor updates and modifications. Yet within the millions of coins struck each year, sometimes mistakes slipped through the rigorous minting process, and that is exactly where the story of the 2001p dime begins. Because this small coin that rolled out of the Philadelphia Mint was no ordinary strike, but one with unique errors and mint mark anomalies that over time have elevated it from a 10-cent piece into a legendary coin worth nearly $1 million. And when we discuss coin errors, it is important to understand that there are several categories of mistakes that can occur during minting, including double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes, repunched mint marks, missing elements, and many more. And collectors value these mistakes because they are one of a kind or extremely limited, meaning they can never be replicated intentionally by the mint, and thus they introduce scarcity, which in the world of collecting is equivalent to value. And for the 2001p dime, certain combinations of errors and rare die states have been discovered, including misaligned die strikes that left parts of the lettering and images slightly off balance, giving the coin a distorted yet fascinating look. And some examples show doubling on the inscriptions, such as Liberty or In God We Trust, or even on the date itself, 2001, and in a few very rare cases the mint mark P, which represents Philadelphia, was struck either twice or in a misplaced position, causing what numismatists call a repunched mint mark, or RPM, which is among the most desirable types of errors because it visibly alters the character of the coin while still being an official mint product. And this mint mark anomaly is part of what makes the 2001p dime rise into the extraordinary category. But beyond these striking mint errors, there is also the matter of condition, which plays a massive role in determining coin value, because even the rarest error coin will not command its highest potential price if it has been heavily circulated, worn down, or damaged, whereas pristine examples, often graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, can reach astronomical prices. And in the case of the 2001p dime, the most valuable specimens have not only the error features but also an incredibly high mint state grade, meaning they survived more than 2 decades in nearly perfect condition with sharp details, luster, and barely any marks. And such a combination of rarity, error, and condition is what pushes its value into the millions. And one cannot overstate how remarkable it is to see a coin minted for everyday commerce, where millions were struck at the Philadelphia facility, suddenly emerge as one of the most valuable numismatic treasures simply because of these unique characteristics. And it also highlights how coin collecting is a fascinating intersection of history, economics, art, and chance, because each coin tells a story about its time and production, but only a handful tell stories that captivate the imagination of collectors and investors alike. And this dime from 2001 is exactly that kind of coin, a piece that shows us how something so ordinary can become extraordinary with the right set of circumstances. And if we expand on the possibilities, it is worth noting that collectors are always hunting for error dimes from the 2000s, because errors became Somewhat less common as mint technology improved, yet when they do occur they are spectacularly valued, and with the 2001 P dime many different variations have been reported, including those with rotated dies where the reverse design is misaligned compared to the obverse, causing a noticeable tilt when you flip the coin, as well as dimes with off-center strikes where parts of the coin design are missing because the blank planchet was not properly aligned when struck between the dies, and in some highly collectible cases the off-center strike still manages to preserve the full date and mint mark, which makes them all the more desirable. And even more fascinating are coins struck on the wrong planchets, meaning the blank intended for another denomination like a penny or a nickel accidentally receives the dime design, and these types of major mint errors are so incredibly scarce that whenever one surfaces it immediately sparks a bidding frenzy among collectors, driving prices into the hundreds of thousands and even millions. And when you put together all these possibilities surrounding the 2001 P dime, it is easy to see why its story has grown into one of legend in the numismatic community. And let us not forget that market demand also plays a crucial role in determining value, because the more collectors who desire a coin, the higher its price can climb. And as word spreads about the rarity and uniqueness of specific examples of the 2001 P dime, the demand only continues to grow, fueling even higher auction records and private sales. And that is why when one such dime reached a valuation close to $0.9 million, it was not just because of its errors or its condition, but also because of the intense competition among collectors who were eager to own a piece of modern numismatic history. And when you consider that most people handle dimes every day without giving them a second thought, it is nothing short of astonishing to realize that one small coin in your pocket change could be worth more than luxury home supercars or even some works of fine art. And this possibility is what keeps the passion for coin collecting alive, because there is always the thrill of discovery, the idea that the next coin you examine could turn out to be that elusive rarity that changes your life forever. And in the case of the 2001 P dime, the extraordinary truth is that for at least one lucky collector, that dream became reality when the coin they held was recognized, valued, and sold for nearly $1 million. And this incredible story underscores the importance of paying attention to detail when it comes to coins, because errors can be subtle and easy to overlook, yet those tiny mistakes make all the difference between an ordinary 10-cent piece and a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And so as we continue to explore the fascinating world of numismatics, it becomes clear that the 2001 P dime will forever hold its place as one of the most iconic modern rarities, reminding us that value is not always about what something was originally worth, but about the story it tells, the scarcity it embodies, and the passion it ignites in those who seek it. And that is why collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike continue to be captivated by this remarkable coin, because at the end of the day it is not just a dime, it is a piece of American history, a symbol of human error turned into priceless perfection, and a shining example of how something so small can achieve greatness far beyond what anyone could have imagined when it first left the mint over 2 decades ago. Everyone to another exciting video, where today we dive deep into the fascinating and often unbelievable world of coin collecting. And in this video we are going to uncover all the incredible details about the 2008 P Roosevelt 1 dime Liberty coin, a coin that many people overlook in their everyday pocket change, but which, because of some extremely rare errors and unique minting mistakes, has been valued by collectors and enthusiasts at the jaw-dropping figure of $10 million, a value so astonishing when compared to its small face value of just 10 cents that it makes you wonder how something so ordinary could become so extraordinary. And to truly appreciate this coin story, we need to begin with a little bit of history and context, because the Roosevelt dime has been an iconic coin in United States circulation since 1946, when it was first introduced to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt after his death, with his portrait placed on the obverse, and a torch, oak branch, and olive branch featured on the reverse to symbolize liberty, strength, and peace. And by the time we get to 2008, billions of dimes have been produced, but the Philadelphia Mint that year produced coins with the P mint mark, and while the vast majority were struck without issue, a small handful came out of the presses with errors so significant that their rarity and intrigue immediately skyrocketed them into numismatic legend, and one of the main reasons why a simple dime could reach a valuation of $10 million is tied to the concept of rarity in the world of coin collecting, because collectors value coins not simply for the metal they contain or the denomination they represent, but for how unique they are, how they connect to historical circumstances, and how few examples exist in pristine condition. And in the case of the 2008 P Roosevelt dime, the most prized examples are those that contain minting mistakes such as double strikes, misaligned dies, missing elements, off-center strikes, or even anomalies with the mint mark itself where the P was either misplaced, doubled, missing, or stamped in an unusual way, and each of these kinds of errors tells a fascinating story about how even in a highly mechanized and controlled minting environment, human oversight, machine malfunctions, or miscalibrations can result in coins that break the mold. And while most error coins might only bring in hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on their severity, the 2008 P dime stands apart because certain documented examples with extraordinary errors combined with flawless preservation have fetched such unprecedented attention from high-end collectors that valuations soared into the millions, and the possibility of a single specimen valued at $10 million comes from its convergence of factors, namely its extreme rarity, the historical significance of error coins in U.S. minting history, and the insatiable appetite of collectors willing to pay any price to own a one-of-a-kind treasure. And when we dig deeper into the potential error varieties for this coin, we encounter stories of misaligned obverse and reverses where the Roosevelt portrait might appear slightly shifted or distorted, striking errors where part of the design is missing, planchet errors where the blank piece of metal used to strike the coin was flawed or improperly prepared, and even cases of die cracks or cuds where portions of the die broke during minting, leaving raised blobs or gaps on the final coin. And beyond the technical aspects of the errors, there is the mystique and allure of mint mark anomalies, because the Philadelphia Mint's P mark on coins produced in 2008 was supposed to be perfectly placed and clear, yet in some rare instances the mint mark appears doubled, faint, or oddly shaped, making those examples immediately stand out from regular production. And for collectors, these tiny differences can make all the difference between a coin worth only 10 cents and one that could change hands for life-changing sums. And let's not forget that market value in numismatics is not just about technical rarity but also about perception, desirability, and the stories that coins carry, because a dime that most people would never notice becomes a cultural and historical artifact when it is connected to ideas of imperfection, rarity, and the thrill of the hunt. And this is why auctions of rare error coins often attract such staggering bids, because they are not simply purchases of metal but purchases of history, prestige, and exclusivity. And the 2008 P dime that is said to be worth $10 million stands as a pinnacle example of how extraordinary error coins can become, as stories circulate of high-profile collectors, investors, and museums seeking to secure these dimes to add to their collections, with each transaction driving the perceived value higher and higher. And when we consider the broader context of error coins throughout U.S. history, we see that there are precedents for such astronomical valuations, like the 1943 copper penny that sold for over $1 million, or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel that has sold for multiple millions, and the 2008 P dime joins this elite club because its value is driven by the same dynamics of rarity, error, and collector demand. And to identify such a coin, if you were to stumble across a 2008 dime in your change, you would need to look very carefully with a magnifying glass under proper lighting. Checking first the mint mark, P, to see if it shows doubling, faintness, misplacement, or other anomalies, examining the overall strike quality for signs of doubling or misalignment, scanning the surface for cracks, extra metal, missing areas of design, or unusual textures, and even weighing the coin, because sometimes planchet errors involve incorrect metal compositions or thicknesses that change the weight slightly. And while most circulated examples will show wear and may not be worth more than face value, it is those pristine uncirculated examples preserved in mint state or even graded by professional services as MS-67, MS-68, or higher that become true treasures, especially if they also exhibit dramatic errors. And once such a coin is authenticated and certified, it enters the elite world of high-stakes numismatics, where collectors are willing to outbid each other to secure ownership, driving values into the millions. And this is how a simple 2008 P Roosevelt dime that anyone might overlook can achieve a valuation of $10 million, a story that captures the imagination because it shows how ordinary objects from our daily lives can hide extraordinary potential. And in this case, the little silver-colored dime symbolizes the incredible intersection of history, craftsmanship, error, and human desire, reminding us that coin collecting is not just about money but about the pursuit of rare and unique pieces of art and history. And as you continue your own journey in Coins, remember to check every dime carefully, because you never know if the next one you hold could be an overlooked treasure that holds not just the face value of 10 cents but the potential of millions, a chance discovery that transforms the everyday into the extraordinary and makes you part of the ongoing story of numismatics, where the 2008 Roosevelt dime has earned its place as one of the most talked about, sought after, and astonishingly valuable coins in modern history, and this is why. The legend of the $10 million dime continues to captivate collectors and inspire all of us to keep our eyes open, because sometimes the smallest coin can hold the biggest story. Deep into the fascinating world of rare coins and hidden treasures that could be sitting right in your pocket change without you even realizing it, and in this episode we are going to talk about one of the most intriguing discoveries in modern numismatics, the 2011 Roosevelt dime. A coin that on the surface carries a simple face value of just 10 cents, but under special circumstances and due to its minting anomalies, errors, and mint mark peculiarities, it has been valued in the collector market at an astonishing $12 million, and that incredible jump in value compared to its basic worth is precisely why coin enthusiasts and collectors around the world are constantly on the lookout for such specimens, because the difference between a normal dime and a rare error dime can literally mean the difference between a pocket change coin and a life-changing fortune. So let us explore every detail, every aspect, and every possibility that makes the 2011 Liberty dime such a phenomenal and extraordinary coin. And as we take this journey, we will not only unravel its historical background, but also explain why error coins are so highly prized, how to identify them, and why certain mistakes during the minting process can transform what appears to be an ordinary coin into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. So let's start by revisiting the Roosevelt dime itself, which first entered circulation in 1946 to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who had passed away the year before, and whose legacy of leadership during World War II and his role in establishing the March of Dimes campaign made him the perfect